Hello. Today I'm going to show you a simple function. If you're a beginner coder on MetaTrader, this might be useful for you. It's just a function that will close all of your orders that have met a minimum profit level. So something you may want to call as part of your expert advisor if you're simply looking for things to reach a target profit level. I'll write this for MetaTrader 4 and then I'll go on and write it for MetaTrader 5 as well. So I'll just show the disclaimer now, and while you're watching that, I'll get everything ready. Now on the screen, I've already used the wizard to create a script that I'm going to be using to test this. I've just called it close profit orders, and I've filled in some lines inside the start. This is just to exercise the function that I'm going to write. I'm defining a variable type double for the minimum profit, and this says that I'm going to be closing orders that have reached a minimum profit of at least $10. Then I've got a magic number. I'm setting it to -1. That's going to be my default for all magic numbers. I've included the magic number in the call because if you're calling this from an expert advisor, you really should be passing in the magic number for that expert advisor. So that's the calls. Let's get on to writing the function. All right, this is the start of the function. It's called close profit orders. It's a type Boolean because I want to know if I've been successful in closing these orders. So I'm declaring a Boolean result and setting that to true to begin with. So that's going to be my default value. And then I'm simply returning that at the end. And the arguments in here, there's the symbol being passed in, and then the magic number, and I'm setting a default value for this magic number in case you don't supply it. I have passed it in the call up here, but it's possible to call this function without passing that, and so I've declared the default value as -1. Then the order type, which I'm passing a buy here, but I'm also going to allow closing of all orders, and that's why I'm defaulting the type to -1. So if you don't supply that, or if you do supply a negative number in the call, then this will close all order types. And finally, the minimum profit, which I'm defaulting to 0. This function will close trades that have reached at least that much profit. Now the first step, because we're going to be looping through our orders, is to get the orders total. This is an inbuilt function and it tells us how many current open orders we have in MetaTrader. So next, my standard loop for int I equals count -1. So this is the count, the total number of orders, and that's a count of orders, and the orders actually begin at number 0. So we need to start from count -1 as long as I is greater than or equal to 0, and I'm counting down I minus. This is my habit, and it's not a bad practice to count down when you're processing a list where you might be, in this case, closing orders or destroying something in that list. So I'm starting with the highest number and counting down to 0. So the next step is this order select, and I'm using the index number from the loop, select by position, and mode trades. Mode trades tells this order select function that I'm looking at the open trades and not the history, and select by pos tells that I'm looking at the index number that I've passed in here. So this will load the information for order number I. That's not ticket number, that's I inside the list. That will load all of that into memory. So the next order functions will give the values back for that. And now, because this function is returning a Boolean, if I've been unsuccessful in that order select, I'm also going to return false if that was unsuccessful. So I'm setting the result to false when I've failed to do an order select. This may not be a relevant order. I don't know because I was unable to select it, but I'm setting this to false so that when it returns to this calling function, then I know that I might want to process the close orders again. But I'm also not returning immediately. I'm setting the value to false because that way I'll continue to loop through the rest of the orders and close them if that can be. And next, if this order select has been successful, I have all the information for the order in memory. So first thing I'm going to compare is the order symbol. Inbuilt function order symbol, no arguments passed to that. If that's equal to the symbol passed in, and the magic number is less than 0, which is the default, or if you've passed in a negative number, or magic number is equal to the magic number passed in. So this test will allow me to process all magic numbers if you've passed in a negative number, or the relevant magic numbers for your EA if you've passed in a valid number. And then a similar test, if type is less than 0, then I'm going to process all order types, or the order type for the selected order is equal to the type. Now let me also mention these values, order symbol, order magic number, and order type, you should always execute order select just before you use them. Don't rely on them being relevant if you picked up order select, for example, in the previous tick, because these don't retain a view of the order as it stands. They retain the information when the order was selected. So always use order select just before you use these values. So next, I'm only going to close orders that have reached minimum profit. And this could be passed in as a negative number if you wanted to accept losses. I'm taking the default of 0, and typically, as you'd see here, I'm passing in a higher value. But I only want to close based on real profit. Order profit doesn't show me the total profit or loss for the order. I also need to add in the order swap, because if I've held the order overnight, there's probably been some interest charges. And order commission, because if I have a commission broker, they will have charged some commission up front on this trade. So the total of these three will give me the total profit on the order. Then finally, I just want to say if the profit from this calculation is greater than or equal to the minimum profit passed in here, then result ampersand equals, we'll get back to that. And this is the order close function. I'm passing in the order ticket, which is coming from the information we retrieved for the order, the number of lots the order has, and the current close price for the order. So that will take care of closing the order. If for some reason that returns false, this ampersand equals will compare with result, and result will be set to false if this returns false, and if result is already false, it will just stay as false. So that's the ampersand equals. It's Boolean equivalent to plus equals or multiplies equals. And then at the end of all of that, the loop finishes and we just return the result. And that's the complete function for MetaTrader 4. And you might want to add extra conditions in here if you like, but this should do for most of your expert advisors or any other place you want to use this function. It's something you might want to put into your function library. Now we'll move on and I'll do the same thing for MetaTrader 5. Before I do, I'm going to have a little rant about MetaTrader 5. I get a lot of people asking me, can I do the same code for MetaTrader 5? And I'm doing it today. MetaTrader 5 is not an upgrade or a new version of MetaTrader 4. It is a different product. The two are completely incompatible. If you have a MetaTrader 4 client, you cannot connect it to a MetaTrader 5 account at your broker. And if you have a MetaTrader 5 client, you cannot connect that to a MetaTrader 4 account with your broker. The two simply do not work together. There's a lot of similarities in the way they appear, but they are different. MetaTrader 5 was developed to meet a different client market to MetaTrader 4. It was to meet an expanding market and address more stock traders, where MetaTrader 4 primarily was for foreign exchange and expanded into metals and other commodities. MetaTrader 5 was also developed to meet FIFO and non-hedging rules. And in fact, the very first version of MetaTrader 5 only allowed FIFO and netting accounts. And that made it unsuitable for everyone in the world who didn't want to trade on netting and FIFO. And there are some good reasons why you might not want to do that. You might be running two different strategies on your account that actually trade in ways where FIFO is inappropriate or netting is inappropriate. So later, MetaTrader 5 was modified to add hedging accounts and to allow orders to be closed in a non-FIFO mode. But if you look at the way the code writes and some of the functions here, you can understand that some of that appears to be a bolt-on and it was added later in the design process. And for a lot of those reasons, I find MetaTrader 5 is much harder to use than MetaTrader 4. The platform itself offers very few advantages. It offers some extra time frames, it runs a little faster. None of those things are a problem if you're a beginning trader, and even if you're a more experienced trader, you may not need them at all. So before making a decision on whether you want to use MetaTrader 4 or MetaTrader 5, consider what benefits you'll achieve from them, and then consider the difficulty in using MetaTrader 5 if you're writing code. So now I'll jump into MetaTrader 5 and do the same thing there, and you'll see the difference. Now in the MetaTrader 5 editor, I've done the same thing. I have a script and I've inserted my lines where I'm setting the minimum profit magic number to be used, and the close profit orders call is the same, except that now I'm using position type buy instead of order type buy. MetaTrader 5 uses positions. It still has orders, but they've been redefined to mean something else. So I'm using position type buy in this case. So now the function, close profit orders, the arguments are still the same, except that this is now enum position type instead of enum order type. I'm still setting up a Boolean result of true to begin with and returning that result at the end. Just as before, I need a variable count to store the total number that I'm going to process through. But again, I'm getting positions total now instead of orders total. This is just a simple replacement of one function with another. The data type here is simply because position total returns a uint, so some of the data types have changed in MetaTrader 5 to account for larger numbers. And then my loop, the only change here is that I'm using a uint instead of an int, but I'm doing the same thing, count -1, counting down to 0, I minus minus. So here's the first functional difference. When I was processing orders in MetaTrader 4, I had to select the order before I could get any information about it. In MetaTrader 5, there is this position get symbol function where I can pass an index, so I can test for the symbol before I do anything else. But this is inconsistent because there are very few functions where I can get information about the position by index only. Generally, I have to select the position first, but there is this position get symbol. So I'm testing that first. I could have left it until later and put it in the same place as the MetaTrader 4 code, but just for efficiency purposes, because typically most orders are going to be knocked, or most positions are going to be knocked out by the symbol, I'll test that as early as possible. So next, I have to get the ticket number first. So there's a position get ticket function, which uses the index number. And I need the ticket because the position select function works only by ticket. It doesn't work by index. So I need to select the position by the ticket, which means I need to get the ticket before I can do that. So that's another functional difference between MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5. Not particularly difficult so far. Now here's my condition. I'm still testing magic number is less than 0 or magic number is equal to this position get integer. So there is no position magic as there was an order magic number. I need to use position get integer and pass in an argument that is position underscore magic. And the same thing with the type. If it's less than 0, that's processing everything, but I need to call position get integer, passing in the argument position type to check that against the type. So that's another functional difference between MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5. A lot of those functions that simply returned a single value have been replaced by these get integer and get string and get double functions, which take an argument and return a value. Not a significant problem, but it's just another change to be made. The other thing you'll notice here, I'm no longer testing the symbol because I tested that above. So next, I also need the real profit on this position. So I'm declaring double profit. And here I need position get double, passing the argument of the position profit. I also want to get the swap. So there's position get double for position swap. And I'll just wrap this down to the next line so it's easier to see. There is no position commission in here. This is another reflection of the heritage of MetaTrader 5. When it was first created, there was no thought of giving position commissions back in this argument. But there is actually a position commission argument. It just doesn't appear in this list. And I think this code is good so far, so I can actually compile this just to prove that that's correct. Yes. So position commission is a valid argument to pass into position get double. But it's unreliable. Because different brokers process commission in different ways, this may not return a value. So typically, we will create another function to calculate the commission. And it's a complex thing to calculate. So let me rewrite this statement calling a function, and then we'll go down and write that function. All right, now I've rewritten it. So I'm still using the position get double for the position profit and swap. And this is a call to my custom function, position get commission. So now let's go down and write that function. So this is the beginnings of my commission get commission function. And just in case position get double of position commission actually does return a value, so if result is not equal to 0, then I'm just going to return that result. But as I said, it's unreliable. Not all brokers will give you an answer here, and so you may need to go further. The position if it doesn't answer this position underscore commission argument, then you have to go into the deals for that position. And I guess a little bit of background. When you first open a trade, you place an order. The order gets executed in the market. That execution turns the order into a deal. The deal is then done and goes into history, and you're left with a position. So it's possible to add to a position or subtract from a position. And so you may have multiple deals associated with that position. So we now have to loop through all of the deals for this position and get the commission from each of those deals in order to know the total commission on this one position. So step one, first I need the ID of the position. This is not the ticket number for the position. This is another number again. So I can get that with the position get integer position identifier. And it's a U long, so I'm grabbing that ID. Next, I need to make sure that all of the deal information is in memory. This history select function takes two arguments, a from time and a to time, and then it will go out and bring in all of the history for your account between those two dates. I have no idea when this deal was placed in here, so I'm taking all history from time 0 up to the current time, and that will pull the deal into memory for me. If I don't do that, that deal may simply not be there, and then I will never know that I missed that deal. So the next part's fairly standard. I'm declaring a count variable, and I'm getting history deals total. So this tells me how many deals are in my history. And then the standard loop, and again I'm counting down with I minus minus, so uint I from count -1 down to 0. And the next, very similar to the position, I need to declare a ticket, and I can get the value of that ticket using history deal get ticket and passing in the index. So I'm looping through, and one by one I'm getting the ticket numbers back for the deal that's in my history. And as long as that was successful, I'll have a ticket greater than 0. If it's unsuccessful, the ticket will be 0 or less. And then finally, history deal get integer, passing in the ticket number and deal position ID, if that matches the ID of the position. So this is a final test. So I'm matching the position ID that the deal number knows about with the position ID of my position. If that matches, then I'm just going to accumulate into my result this double variable that I declared here, and it must be 0 because it passed this test, or it must start at 0. Result plus equals history deal get double, and again, ticket number and deal underscore commission. So that will give me the commission on all of the deals related to this position. And when I complete that loop, I'll have that total. So at the end, I can just return the result. But that's not quite everything. Remember that a position is the sum of all of the deals. In MetaTrader 4, you simply close the order. In MetaTrader 5, to close a position, you actually make another deal in the opposite direction to the direction where the position was opened. So what I've just done is calculate the commission on all of the deals that this position has had so far. But when I'm trying to close the position, there's one more deal to come. It hasn't happened yet, so I can't look at it. So the position's still open. We need one more deal to close it. I don't know if that deal will have commission or not. I could maybe calculate this by taking the total number of lots that I've traded so far in this position, calculating the total of the commission charged and coming up with the commission per lot. And then I can multiply that and do some kind of averaging and have a guess at what the commission's going to be. What's hard about all of that? Why wouldn't you want to do that? Back to close profit orders. I now have my total profit. I just need to do the same test that I had before. So I'll test as long as the profit on this deal is greater than or equal to the minimum profit that I specified, and then I need to close the trade. And here, closing a position in MetaTrader 5 is also more difficult. Fortunately, MetaQuotes recognize that, and they've provided a class called Trade or C-Trade with MetaTrader 5, and it has a function that I can use to close a position. But without that, it would be complex logic to close this position. So to use that, I first need to include the class in my code here. I do that with the include statement, and this class lives in trade/trade.mqh, and then I'm just declaring a global variable, or in the global scope. It's of type C-Trade, and I'm just calling it trade. I'm not using the pointer here. That means that I'm actually creating a variable, not a pointer to a variable, And this also means I don't need to worry about deleting it when I finish the code, because it will just evaporate. So now with all of that in place, I could just call trade, which is the name of the variable that is the ctrade class, and this function of that class, position close, passing in the ticket number, and that will take care of closing the ticket for me. So that's the MetaTrader 5 equivalent of the function to close the trades in MetaTrader 4. My best advice to you, if you're using MetaTrader 5, don't. But if you have to use it because there's something about it that you need, you're going to have to go to a little bit more work with the code that you write. So now I've shown both the functions for MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5. You can put these into your function library. I've had my rant about MetaTrader 5. I don't like it because it is more difficult to do things, and although I can write functions to deal with all of these differences, why do I want to do that when I have functions that already work in MetaTrader 4? So until these kinds of things are addressed, I'm going to continue to put most of my effort into MetaTrader 4. And even then, there's not much need to change because I can't simply take everything I have and put it into MetaTrader 5. So as long as MetaTrader 4 continues to work, and the last update I had to MetaTrader 4 was just this morning, so it's not an abandoned product, then I'll continue to use MetaTrader 4. Still, you've seen both of these functions. They both do the same thing. If you found this useful in any way, then please click the like button. If you want to see more of our videos, then click subscribe, and if you click the bell icon, then you'll be notified when we do release the next video. So until the next time, thank you for watching.